Hi, I'm Chris Georgenes, and my current job title is Animator. I'm born and raised in Boston, Massachusetts, good old USA, and I'm still here. I graduated art school, the Hartford Art School, in 1989, and that was before the internet as we know it, right? Before anyone had cell phones or computers for that matter. So it wasn't until several years later that I actually got hired, very luckily, for a job that was paperless. It was all on the computer. Eventually started using software. But what was great was that I didn't learn how to draw on a computer. I didn't learn how to design using a computer or anything else. I learned using traditional techniques, and then I applied that to computer-based design programs and applications. I liked the art school for giving me that type of hammer, that type of tool or set of tools to work with, and that can be applied to anything. Even if I'm using Adobe Animate or Photoshop or Illustrator, whatever it may be, I'm still using what I learned from art school in terms of composition, drawing, color theory, all of it. So in a sense, I'm a little bit of a hybrid. I'm both. I'm mostly schooled, but I've learned from others, from other animators, from other artists along the way. My favorite movie as a kid, one of the first because it influenced an entire country, if not the world, was Jaws. And I saw it in the theater, and I was there physically to witness how an entire audience reacted to a film like that. Also, Indiana Jones, Raiders of the Lost Ark. All right, my go-to comfort food, hummus, is a big one. That's up there. Give me a giant tub of hummus, and I'm happy. I was at the Hartford Art School, and the most influential person in my life was Professor Dennis Nolan. All of a sudden, for the first time in my life, I'm spending every waking moment, and even when I was asleep, I was probably dreaming and thinking of things on a creative basis. Etchings on copper plates, I was doing a lot of that. And there was one leftover piece of copper. I actually did a very quick, probably a 5-minute sketch on that copper plate of a friend of mine, and I threw it in the acid bath. I rolled some ink on it, and I printed off a few copies. Fast forward 4 years of art school, I'm graduating, and every student in the art school gets a gallery show. And as I was setting up the show, that piece that I drew on that little copper plate, that etching, kind of fell out. And I had some extra glass, and I had put everything else up on the wall, but I thought, oh, maybe I'll just throw this thing up on the wall too. I'll put it over there in the corner. My illustration professor, Dennis Nolan, couldn't be there that night. But a couple of days later, I think it was Monday or Tuesday, he mentioned to me, hey, I want to come down and see your work. He quietly stood in front of each illustration, each lithograph, each etching, and he looked at everything. I probably had 20 or 25 pieces up there. And when he was done, he turned to me and he says, you know what the best thing, your best piece of work is? And I thought, well, probably the big one that I spent the most time on. And I said, that one? And he says, no. And he pointed in the opposite direction at that tiny little etching that I hung next to the light switch near the exit. He said it provoked an emotion, and that it was subtle. And I realized in that moment that the 4 years of art school, that was the greatest lesson that I learned, is that being subtle can be more powerful than anything. I was playing in a band full-time pretty much. My guitarist's girlfriend at the time mentioned to me that she has a friend who's an animator on this new, at the time, series on Comedy Central, and it was being produced in the Boston area, and might want to give them a call. On Monday morning, I actually drove to that company with my portfolio. But I figured, hey, I'm tired of cold calling. I'm tired of trying to set up interviews with people who've never met me or seen my work before. It's really difficult to do. I'm just going to go there and drop off my portfolio. And that's what I did. Friday came, I drove back there, and I went to get my portfolio back. And she said, wait, don't leave. And she called down to Annette Kate, who was the art director, animation director for the Dr. Katz show, which was the show we're talking about. She came upstairs, introduced herself, brought me downstairs, and showed me around. And it was awesome. And then I left. And then about a month or two later, I got a call from Andre Lyman. He was the animation director as well at the company, and he told me over the phone that he had seen my work, and that Steven Spielberg had noticed their Dr. Katz show. I believe this story is accurate. It's been a long time. And that Steven Spielberg's new company, he wanted the company producing Dr. Katz that I had my portfolio dropped off at, he wanted them to produce a pilot for his new company. His new company was DreamWorks, by the way. And I'm listening to Andre explain this to me on the phone, thinking, okay. And now at the time, I'm playing in a band and I'm working at my father's restaurant. He had a restaurant in Boston for 55 years or more. And Andre said, would you like to work on this animation pilot? And I said, wait a minute. You are asking me to, first of all, animate something, which I've never done before. I've never animated before. It was a paperless production, meaning it was all done on a computer. I'd never even owned or used a computer before, really. And on something that Steven Spielberg's going to watch. You sure you got the right guy? But I said yes. That's one thing I've always done throughout my career, is I've said yes to almost everything. And then I'll obviously quickly try to figure out what I got myself into and how I was going to pull it off. But I said yes, and I got hired. And Andre assured me, he said, don't worry, the lack of animation skills or computer skills is not a concern. A lot of the way they animated was based on images. Perfect introduction to someone who's never animated before, never really used a computer or drawing tablets or anything like that. And one thing that Andre told me, because he was a musician as well, a guitarist, he says, you're a drummer. Most musicians make really good video editors. So one day he sat me down in front of an Avid Media Composer workstation to edit together one of the scenes from the Dr. Katz show. And he went to lunch. And he came back an hour later, and I had edited the scene together. He played it back, and he liked it. And he says, yep, you're a video editor. So I got really lucky. This whole industry, I almost missed it, but I was willing to jump on it. I was willing to say yes. I was willing to learn, and I was willing to apply everything I learned. I'm going to say everything I know now, I wished I learned sooner, just because I'd probably right now be better at those things. Honestly, I'm both, but I tend to work late. I have been professionally creating for about 25 to 30 years. I do need something. I can work in silence. I'll at least have a movie on or a playlist from a streaming platform of some kind, just to have something going, just so I don't feel completely isolated. It might have to be a dog. So yeah, that's it. Xencelabs, thank you for having me. This was fun. Cheers.